when he always talked about a more perfect union, always that oneness we all talked about, from many, one. And I gave it to him on 4th of July, just a few days before he passed away, because I knew that pretty soon he would be leaving us. He called me down to Atlanta on those few days before. And when he passed away, we had a ceremony in the U.S. Capitol, and he was lying on the catafalque. That's like the stand that his coffin was on. That catafalque was built for Abraham Lincoln. So that just all of it coming together with the courage to keep the country together, but understanding that it's an act, it isn't it's just something that you assume.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, we have about 350 students here tonight and 150 faculty and staff. The first question has been submitted by a student. How can we counter the impact of misinformation and conspiracy theories and the distrust they have generated in our academic institutions?
Right now we're in a situation, and a wonderful question, because if we have the answer to that, it will take us a long way to protecting our democracy. I'm very honored to be here tonight with all of you, each and every one of you, but with my colleague from the Congress, who is your representative, the representative of Smith College in the Congress, Mr. Chairman of the Rules Committee, Jim McGovern. Thank you, Jim, for being here. He won't stand up, shy guy, okay. We're in a situation where we have been blessed with the beauty of the internet, of the technology, of the social media, which is a blessing in many respects. But it is a double-edged sword, because at the same time as we can communicate more directly, whether it's health records, distance learning, staying in touch with family, all the things that are so important, it also is a platform, can be a platform for misinformation, and to do so in a dangerous way. And one of the aspects of your question relates to the misinformation piece. There are among our various platforms some that are just have a profit motive. Their business model is built around money coming in, whatever the information is going out, totally ignoring the fact that it is not true or might be coming from another country, and bots and the rest of that, ignoring the fact that it's foreign money, buying it for not a good reason. There are those, and the Russians for one, who want to undermine democracy in our country and in Western in Europe and other, wherever it exists. So for them to infiltrate with important money into, say, Facebook, which has a business model strictly not about the truth, but about profit, really caused some serious damage in the, shall we say, acceptance or at least fairness in listening and knowing the truth, or knowing at least two sides of a story, but not total misinformation. So what are some of the remedies that we can do in that regard? And I mean, the previous president exploited some of the racism and anti-Semitism and anti-women, all the rest of that was out there anyway, to a certain extent, but it was amplified because he would bring people together on the internet. This is very dangerous to our democracy. So some of the things that could happen are, in Congress, people are looking at, the Judiciary Committee are looking at ways to contain the size of these platforms and these institutions. Have they just grown too big and too dominant and too much of blocking out other things? That's one path we can take. It is also that we just raise our standards to a higher level and to say, let's have this as a blessing. We don't want to curtail freedom of speech, but we do not want, for money, misinformation against COVID and how it is spread, misinformation to reject the science of that, misinformation of the science about the climate crisis and what we need to do about that, and the list goes on, and misinformation about the last election. So the question that you asked is fundamental to our democracy. We are committed to freedom of expression. We are not committed to a profit motive exploiting misinformation to the detriment of truth in our society and in our country.
Thank you. The next question is from a staff member. Of all the threats to our democracy, perhaps the greatest is the ground game of the Republican Party at the state and local levels to disenfranchise voters. This is a passionate staff member. What is the Democratic strategy to preserve fair representation in government?
Well, when I say the Democratic strategy, I don't really mean, I'm not responding in a partisan way to that. We're thinking more in terms of what is the patriotic response to that. The fact is that the vote, and John Lewis was always saying it, the sanctity of the vote, the sanctity of the vote. It is a sacred privilege to be able to vote. It is the essence of a democracy. It is the essence of a democracy. So if you suppress the vote, you are suppressing the democracy. And that is what they're setting out to do in many states across the country. Well, there may be over 400 laws proposed, not all of them enacted, but say even 18 or 20 of them strategically in that number of states can suppress the vote. And when you put up obstacles to participation that is designed to limit minority participation or participation in poor neighborhoods where they have fewer polling places as opposed to other places, so therefore the lines are hours long. But people who really cannot afford time off of work to do all of that, the list goes on, deterring vote by mail, deterring the number of days in advance that you can go. You are suppressing the vote. But we can try to overcome some of that. But when the obstacles become too much, then it's almost insurmountable. For example, what they're doing in Georgia, they're not only suppressing the vote, they're engaged in what is called nullification. Say, for example, Atlanta has a large, Fulton County, which is what Atlanta, has a large African-American population. So they said in that county, in that particular county, we'll appoint 3 people, and after people vote, those 3 people will decide who won the election, regardless of the vote counting. Nullification. Reverend Martin Luther King spoke about that in the I Had a Dream speech. It didn't get much attention because so much else in the speech was so beautiful. But he could see that happening in the South. And now these are really Jim Crow laws. What we can do to counter it is we have legislation that we have already passed in the House, 2 bills, H.R. 1, which John Lewis wrote the first 300 pages. And the first 300 pages are about stopping the voter suppression and negating these laws that are out there. He wrote this about 3 or 4 years ago, but he knew what was possible because he had seen it in the South. But so he wrote that. Now, the next part of the bill is about redistricting so that you have fair, objective, non-political, non-partisan redistricting so that the people will choose their elected person instead of the elected person choosing their constituents. This is where I want to run, draw me this line. No. Where is the community of interest? What honors the Constitution? Voting Rights Act, community of interest, and the rest. And if you have objective redistricting, it might not benefit Democrats, but it might loosen up some of the very extreme Republican districts where those dominant forces are just make it impossible to have a reasonable debate with some of those folks. We always respect the results of an election, and when people don't, that is a threat to our democracy. So we have the bills passed in the House. They're now in the Senate. I think we've agreed on some of the language. The question is, would the Senate have an accommodation for the filibuster in order to bring up the bills with 51 votes instead of needing 60, because the Republicans will never vote for these bills. They've made that really clear. So we have a lot at stake in what will happen in the Senate on that legislation. And again, this comes right back to a republic if we can keep it. And I say to my Republican friends, take back your party. The country needs a big, strong Republican Party. Here I say that as a leader in the Democratic Party, but we need a big, strong Republican Party. You've done so much for our country. Take pride and take back your party. Don't have it be a cult of personality on the extreme, extreme, extreme right. This isn't about liberal or conservative. It's about radical, should we say, they don't believe in governance. So you see, for example, with COVID, if science says we should be wearing masks and government says you must wear a mask inside, they'll say we're anti-science, we don't believe the science to begin with, and we certainly are not going to obey the governance that requires that. That's one example. Of course, we go through this with climate change and so many other areas of denial that they're in. So, again, as nonpartisan as I can be, take back the Republican Party. I'm not a Republican here. Take back your party, which has done so much for our country, and we can compete in the world of ideas about what the role of government is. We have confidence in our beliefs, but we have humility enough to listen to others and how things might work regionally or generationally or ethnically or whatever differences there are. But we have some real challenges. And my thing is about children, whatever is good for children. That's why I went from the kitchen to the Congress. I didn't have any interest in running for public office. So I say this to young women here. Be ready. I had no idea I was going to be running for Congress. Now, I had no interest in running for public office because I was basically a shy person. That was a long time ago. But when they came to me and said, you're so interested in these issues, you're so interested in issues, I had been a volunteer in the Democratic Party. I was even the chair of the California Democratic Party, which I thought was a really big deal. But it was all volunteer. And I could do that while my children were in school during the day, and that was that. But then when they started to be in college, people came to me and said, you care about these issues so much, you should have the chance to work on them in the Congress. So I went to my daughter, who was 16. She was going to be a senior, she was going to be a senior in high school. She was young for her class. And I said, Alexandra, Mommy has a chance to run for Congress. People are asking me to run for Congress. And I love my life. I had been an at-home mom. I love my life. I love being with you and Dad and that. If I were to run, and if I won, which I don't know if I would have to be going about 3 nights a week, either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's how it goes. You're there 4 days, 3 nights. So, but any answer is fine. I'm fine not to run. I don't even know if I'll win. But I promised that I would consider it. She said, Mother, now I knew I was in trouble, right? Mother, get a life. And I never heard that. This was over 30 years ago. You laugh now, but I never heard that before. Get a life. She said, what teenage girl would not want her mother out of the house 3 nights a week? So I got another life. I mean, I had my beautiful life with my family, but I got a congressional life that long time ago. But I was ready. You know, I was ready. I knew my why. I knew why I would want to do it. And my why was for the children. 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty, goes to sleep hungry at night. In America, the greatest country that ever existed, as a mother of 5 myself, I couldn't bear that. So that was my motivation, my why. I knew about the subject thoroughly because I had studied it and all the rest, so I knew what I would be talking about. I had a strategic plan how I thought I could convince others, and that's attracted support, and I won for Congress. I would later in Congress serve with Jim McGovern, who is the champion on addressing hunger in America, and I want to acknowledge that nobody has done more than Jim McGovern. So I just say to all of you, think about it. This country needs you. We need more diversity in our government. No offense to the gentleman, no offense, but there's value to having diversity at the table, and we hadn't had that. When I went to Congress, there were 23 women out of 435 people. What? You must be kidding. So we, on our side of the aisle, made a decision. So now we have like 90. I think they have 25 or something like that, so they made some progress on the other side. But we made a decision. So our caucus is over 70% women, people of color, LGBTQ. It looks like America. Very much like America. Be ready. You never know. You never know.
I think they'll be ready. This question is from a faculty member. California and the West are on fire, and the Northeast has had a 75% increase in heavy downpours. This is just the beginning of climate change. What plans do congressional Democrats have to address this urgent issue?
Well, the issue of climate change, when I was speaker the first time, 07 to 11, this was my flagship issue, the climate issue. You know why? Because it was urgent and we didn't have a day to spare. That was then. We passed the bill in the House. We couldn't get the 60 votes in the Senate. But we did work with President Bush in a bipartisan way to pass the biggest energy bill to reduce emissions and help alleviate some of the problem. And that legislation was the basis for some of the things that President Obama did by executive order later. Imagine if we thought it was urgent at the moment, desperate without a day to spare in 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 like that, what it is now. So what we're doing right now in the Congress is, in both times when I was speaker, I established something, the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. A person who is the chair of it, Kathy Castor from Florida. I wish you could meet her. She's a bulldog on this issue. I mean, but her approach is a beautiful approach of bringing everyone to the table, whether it's scientists and religious, business and labor, labor and environmental and business, farmers, venture capitalists, which we need the private sector to be involved in it. In every aspect. I always love the scientists and the people of faith. The people of faith, as do I, believe this is God's creation, and we have a moral responsibility to be good stewards of it. The scientists, maybe they think so or not, but it doesn't matter. We all believe that this is our moral responsibility to pass this planet on to you and future generations in a responsible way. It's a health issue. The air we breathe, I mean, our children you breathe, the water you drink, so many aspects of health. It's a jobs issue, green jobs, for America to be technologically preeminent in the world with green jobs. It is a defense issue, a security issue. Our national security experts tell us that the rising sea levels, the encroachment of deserts, the drying up of rivers, the thermal management of the planet, all of that increases competition for habitat and resources and the rest, causes migrations. It is a security issue. That again, as I said before, it's also a moral. Health, jobs, security, values, that we have a responsibility. So in our bill now that we are debating, and that I was on the phone as I came here, and I'll be on the phone when I leave here, we're putting together a reconciliation bill. In the Senate, they passed an infrastructure bill. You've heard about it. It's a good bill. It's not a climate change bill. It's a good bill, but it doesn't do what we need to do in terms of climate. And so that's what we're doing in the next bill, in the reconciliation bill, so we can pass them pretty much together. Jim McGovern is the lead person on all of this, so find him on the way out. Because if any of you actually live here, I know many of you from other places, if any of you live in this district, you're his boss. And Jim is central to this because he will write the final package as we give all the input to his committee. It goes to Budget Committee, then to the Rules Committee, of which he is the chairman. And in that, we have major investments. We use everything at our disposal. The tax code for tax credits for renewable energy. We use appropriations to allocate resources in furtherance of preserving the planet, and policies that do that. There's a little denial on the other side. That's why they couldn't get climate in the infrastructure bill. They have electrification, they have one thing, but it isn't anything like what we need. I'll be taking a delegation to COP26 in November. I'm very excited about that. That is so that we can say America's back. You know, the previous president pulled us out of the Paris Accords. We went to Spain and said we're still in, but now we'll go to Glasgow in another couple of months, 2.5, I think, to participate in that. Our president is a climate president. If he were here, he would tell you that he was the first person in Congress to introduce legislation addressing the climate crisis decades ago. Decades ago. This is a very high priority for him. And when he toured the South, and he went to New Jersey, New York, and again Louisiana earlier this week or last week, he talked about the climate crisis, and that we really, maybe every piece of damage that happened isn't attributed to the climate crisis, but the warming of the oceans, the water, and the rest, it's directly related. And we haven't convinced the other side that it exists. So now they're a little bit admitting that that might have something to do with climate change, but not that human behavior had anything to do with it. So therefore, what can we do about it? It's just cycles in the history of the world. But that's not so. But we have our goals, we intend to meet them, and it is very urgent for the health, the jobs, the security, and the values of our country. We're very excited about having a president who will cooperate with this.
That's good to hear. I asked this question on behalf of our...
By the way, that was an applause line for the president.
He has had some great things to say in the last few days, so let's hope you can make some progress. We have students and alums from Afghanistan, so I asked this question for them. As you know, on August 30th, the last U.S. troops were withdrawn from Afghanistan, which ended America's 20-year war in that country. Can you talk about the withdrawal and what it means to you in the country as we prepare to mark 20 years since September 11th? Hard to believe.
Yes, as we prepare to go to New York, many of us will be there for the 20th anniversary. It's just heartbreaking, once again, to visit with the families who lost their loved ones on an assault on our country. An assault on our country by was masterminded in a safe haven, Afghanistan. For that reason, we went in. I believe at the time, I've been to Afghanistan at least 9 times, bringing delegations to show our support for our troops, but also again and again and again to meet with the women and see the girls of Afghanistan, not just in Kabul, which is remarkable, but in the countryside all over Afghanistan. This is has been and continues to be a high priority, what's happening to the women and girls in Afghanistan, for the women and the girls, but also for what it means for the country. It's a good indication of where this country will be going. I myself think the president made the right decision to leave Afghanistan. We should have left a while ago, but we didn't, and we left now. The taking out of our armed services went very well. The overflow of interest in the evacuations was overwhelming, and could have done much better. But 120,000 people were evacuated, and more to come with the commitment to get those who wish to leave, especially Americans, but those who helped Americans and Afghans who wish to leave. Our hearts break for the 13 service members, 11 Marines and two other service members whose lives were lost trying to help people, not in combat, but trying to help people. As we go forward, and that's really what's important, as we go forward, we have to shine a really bright light on what's happening with women and girls in Afghanistan. In the Congress, this is bipartisan. In the House, in the Senate, in the White House too. Laura Bush was a great advocate for the women and girls of Afghanistan, Michelle Obama, Jill Biden, and the presidents too, but in terms of the lead on this, the women have gravitated together on this. The government that they formed is not representative, not diverse, no women for one thing, but also really some pretty bad actors. So we'll see how that goes. It's supposed to be interim, we'll see. But they are going to need help from the rest of the world. And there have to be some standards of how they respect people, but especially how they, in my view, how they treat women. It's a terrible situation, but I do believe we should have left a long time ago. I'm glad the president left when he did. I'm sorry the evacuation started out messy, but now so many people have left with the cost of life that it did to our troops. There were 2 who died from the UK in the evacuation effort. Not our evacuation, but their evacuation effort. So that was sad, but they really made a big sacrifice in that regard. The issue of why we went in was to make sure that Afghanistan would not be a safe haven for terrorists to plan to attack our country. What has happened since that 20 years ago is those bad actors are many places in the world. They're in the Horn of Africa. They're in other places in the world, and we just can't have an army every place we're trying to fight these terrorists. But we can have a system by which we curtail those actions without having 100,000 boots on the ground or 2,500 boots on the ground. It's a very difficult situation. It's one, as to say, my view is that we left Afghanistan too soon before we were finished. We routed the Taliban, but we did not defeat them. They headed for the hills. We went to Iraq on a premise that was not real. There were no weapons of mass destruction. I was the senior Democrat on the Intelligence Committee at the time, and we had to see all the intelligence. The administration had to show it. It was if I'd say to you, there are 10 puppy dogs on this table. They weren't there, but nonetheless, they sold that to the public. My view is that if we had stayed in Afghanistan a longer period of time, but a short time compared to 20 years, we might have had a different outcome. But there'll be after-action review. The committees will all be taking up one thing and another to review what happened over the period of time, the investment of money, the loss of life, and the good thing is that for 20 years, women and girls could have their freedom to go to school, to be in the professions and do things. I don't know that you can really turn that back. The country has changed in that respect, and we can take some, not just us, but us and our allies can take some pride in that, although not pride in how that the Taliban is establishing a government there now. We are going all out in every way to welcome the Afghani evacuees to the United States. We've talked about this before, the former occupant of the White House had a Muslim ban. And it was horrible. It was a Muslim ban on people coming into the United States. So we had a big hearing on the subject. The military turned out, retired, of course, because out of service because they couldn't speak, and if they weren't, saying we cannot have a Muslim ban because most of the people who helped us in Afghanistan and Iraq are Muslim. This ban will hurt their ability to come to the United States because their lives will be threatened for helping us. We had the diplomats, 1,000 diplomats wrote a letter. That doesn't even happen. They don't get involved in those kinds of things, saying this was wrong. But what I'm leading up to is that the evangelicals, a very conservative group in our country, there are progressive evangelicals, but the ones I'm talking about were the evangelicals, and they came and testified and said they were against the president's policy, but they said it this way. They said, the United States Refugee Resettlement Program is the crown jewel of American humanitarianism. That's what they said that day, and we have to remember that. And we have to embrace these people. It will take resources. The president's already asked for an appropriation for that, and we must embrace them. There are 120,000 got out. Not all of them want to come to the United States, but whatever the number is, we can accommodate it. We can accommodate it because we had turned off the spigot on that for the last 4 years, and now we can make up for that, starting with the welcome that we give. And people have been great on both sides of the aisle on this, in the Congress, but also in the country, in welcoming the Afghan evacuees, and we just have to make sure that we keep that going. I was saying to the president earlier, I said, I was calling her Kathy at the time, but the greatest speech on immigrants, I've taken it to immigrants. I know you asked about Afghanistan, but the challenge we have now is with the Afghan evacuees. The greatest speech on immigration, I think, was given by Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan. And I want you to Google it because it was the last speech he made as President of the United States. And he said, this is the last speech I will make as President of the United States, and I want to communicate a message to the country I love. He talked about the Statue of Liberty and what that meant to the world, this welcoming symbol of hope. He talked about America's preeminence in the world because we were blessed by so many newcomers to our country. And if we ever close the door to those people coming to our country, America no longer will be preeminent in the world. We shouldn't be building walls. Ronald Reagan. When I say that to my Republican friends in Congress, you think they'd applaud Ronald Reagan, but no. But look it up because it's so inspiring. I didn't do it justice because he was a great communicator, but it is a beautiful, inspirational speech about what America is. And when he was president and the Congress passed immigration law, which we have a very hard time doing now because of the other side of the aisle, when Congress passed a law, he said, not good enough. I want more, and I'm going to do it by executive action to include families, much more for families than the rest. He and then George Herbert Walker Bush continued that, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama, but then that kind of stopped a few years ago, but we do have to get back to that.
Thank you for that. This is a question from a student. As a woman in power, you are often held to unfair standards compared with your male counterparts. As an ambitious woman myself, I'm wondering how you deal with this.
But when you get the gavel, it's all over. As I said earlier, one of the reasons I'm very excited about becoming a Smithy is because of Smithy's commitment to all of you, about how you have, of course, the beauty of your education, the competence from your experience here, and the respect for your individuality that you have, and all kinds of possibilities. I want you to know that this country needs you. So I want to encourage all of you to know your power, to just think about everything that you have done, what you care about, again, your relationships and all the rest. And as you go forward, you may not do it tomorrow, but you have to be 25 to run for Congress. But know your power. There is no contribution that anybody can make that is like yours. Just think of your individuality and how valuable that is to the future, to the world, to our country, to your community. And again, I say this to women who are further along in life. I'll say to them, and if one of your accomplishments is that you've been a mom, a stay-at-home mom for a certain number of years, put a gold star next to that too, because that is an accomplishment, says she who went from housewife to house speaker. But no. But really, every one of you is so very, very special. Now, competence is the thing that I'm hoping to instill. So sometimes when you see me acting a little blah, it means I want girls to know, young women to know, it's okay. Stand your ground. Be nice. Start with a feather. But let it be known that you intend to stick with this, that you're not going away because you are concerned that somebody might not respect what you had to say. As long as you do, that's okay. So again, as I said earlier about some other things, when I talked about myself, I said I knew my why. I knew why I wanted to do this, because of the children. I knew what I cared about. So say your why is you want to save the planet, or have social justice, or you want to do educate, whatever your subject is. Know your vision. What is your passion? Okay, what is that? Know about your subject. So when you talk about it, people know that you have good judgment because you have knowledge. You don't have to know everything about it. Nobody does. There ain't no secret sauce. Your sincerity is what is important. But you do have to know your stuff. Your vision, your knowledge and judgment. Then you have to think strategically. How am I going to attract people to this point of view? Show a plan. I'm going to have a few meetings, and a few larger meetings, whatever it is. Or I'm going to collaborate with others. But have a plan that draws people into your vision based on your knowledge and sharing it with others. And then your authenticity about that you truly care, that you know what you're talking about, that you have a path that includes others to draw people to your leadership. That authenticity is worth everything. The sincerity of your commitment. And be ready. You just don't know what's around the corner. When I was a mom, my kids, 5 kids in 6 years, all lumped together. I got a call from the mayor of the city of San Francisco, and he said, "What are you doing, Nancy? Cooking dinner?" I said, "No, I'm reading the paper." Because I was watching my kids play and all that, and I was reading the paper. And I didn't mean to be smart aleck, but he didn't think I should be What's he asking me if I'm cooking dinner for? I could have been doing a science experiment or something. Anyway, he was a lovely man, but nonetheless, this was a long time ago. So he said, "I want to point you to the library commission because I know you love the library. You're always there with the kids. Everybody knows you're committed to being a volunteer at the library. You should be a commissioner." And I said, "I don't need to be a commissioner. I'm shy. I don't need to be a commissioner." So we'll volunteer all the time because we love the library, and that's the way a lot of people get books who can't afford to buy books, Well, he said, "I want to tell you this." He said, "You can't say no to this. You're doing the work. You should get the official recognition for it, and you have a vote. So people care what you think because you have a vote on the commission, a commission." So I was convinced. So I went on the committee. I think he knew I was friendly to his point of view. So I think that wasn't so much as he was interested in my career, but he knew it was. And so I accepted, and people did care what I thought because I had a vote. And I said, "We're going to have meetings in the neighborhoods, and we can make a difference." So all as I say is, when you do some things, not to be bragging or anything, but get credit for it. Don't say you're going to do this when you can only do this. Just do what you say you're going to do. Sometimes people say, "I'm going to deliver this, that, and the other thing," but they can't. They don't know if they can do it. But get recognition. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I just mean write it up. Do an op-ed. This is what I've been doing on this. Get yourself recorded on it because you just don't know what's around the corner. I had no idea. Didn't have any interest in running for Congress until they all came. Okay, maybe I'll win, maybe I won't win, this or that. But I knew if I was going to ask people to support me, that I really had an obligation to win, so I didn't have any intention of losing. But you have to take a chance on losing if you're ever going to win. And it might not be the first time, it could be another time. But I'm telling you, please have confidence. You have this beautiful education. You have people whose lives are built around making sure you have the opportunities that your talent, that your values, that your differences deserve. Know your power on all of this. Country needs you. And again, our motto is, when women succeed, America succeeds. So it's and to your question, don't worry about whatever attitude somebody else may have. That's his problem. I guess it's a he. But let me say this. In our bill that we're doing with the President Biden has a vision for our country that captures so many things we've been working for a long time, but now a president who's putting it all out there. Build Back Better it's called. As I said, we have the infrastructure bill. That's Build Back the same way. This is Build Back Better with the second bill. And why it's Build Back Better? It's Build Back Better with women. And so for women in the workplace, women took the biggest bite of the swarmy apple of COVID. 4.5 million women were out of their jobs. Still another 2 million are still not back in the workplace. Why? The children were out of school. They couldn't afford the child care. They had sick family members. They didn't have family and medical leave, all that kind of thing. So in his bill, for women to make the advances that they need, and that those advances are good for our country when women succeed, we have a couple $100 billion for child care. We have the child tax credit. The third check is going out next week, and that will continue to go out. We're trying to make it permanent, but we will definitely extend it. We have universal pre-K, so that little children can be going to school, children learning, parents earning. We have paid family and medical leave. Somebody's sick in the family, you can stay home and be paid. You don't have to lose your job or lose your pay because somebody is sick in the family. And a big initiative that's brand new, well, the paid part of family and medical leave is new. We've had family and medical leave but not paid. And then the big piece, which is home health care. If you have a disabled person at home, or you have a senior or a child, there's a couple, there'll be a lot of money. I don't want to say a number because we're still negotiating, a huge chunk of money. This hasn't been done before, to care for those people at home. So a woman who is working, or a dad, many dads would benefit from this too. It's just that women bear the fuller responsibility of child care and elder care and other family care. So that now women can be in the workplace knowing that their families are safely cared for, that the children are getting the child care or the universal pre-K when they're that young. And their mind can be on the job. You always worry about your family. So if somebody's hiring you, they know they're getting you. They're getting you and all that potential. And you expect that to be rewarded with a career path. And any company, and I say this to my friends in California, if you want to attract the best possible talent, and I think that means many women, show that you appreciate the value of women in the workplace by having them see people in the higher echelons of your company. Not if you come in, maybe you can do this. No, I see it already. So anyway, I just want you to all have confidence. Confidence. Forget about what somebody else may say, because some people just can't help it. It's not your problem, okay? Don't make it your problem. Just show the inspiration that each and every one of you is. I feel inspired by you. I can see your glow coming right up to this stage. I know that you all will do remarkable things, and whatever it is, it's your remarkable thing. It may be modest in terms of your family opportunities and situations, or it may be later, but whatever it is, it's unique. Nobody like you. A very special you. Applaud yourselves. Is that it? Are we done? No?
Our time has come to an end, although I know I speak for everyone when I said I could listen to you speak all night. Thank you so much for the inspiration, and how lucky are we that the Honorable Nancy Pelosi is referring to herself as a Smithy.
I know that your distinguished president, provost, chairman of the board are all very proud of you. They brag about you. I know they're proud of you by dint of their commitment to service to you. Isn't it wonderful to have Madam President McCartney as president of Smith College?
Well, thank you, distinguished guests. Thank you, Michael Thurston and Alex Keller, for kicking off this year on Democracies. I hope to see the students at each and every event. Thank you so much for joining us. What a special evening in the life of Smith College. Please join me in thanking the Honorable Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you all. You are amazing.
I had so much fun. Yeah. Thank you.